for any foreigners in the room, and what's quite exciting is that I certainly have a few family members in the UK that are going to be online tonight, so they may not know where the Kruger is. So if you look in the top right-hand corner of our map, you'll see in green the Kruger National Park, and that is where this adventure took place. So on the border of Zimbabwe and the border of Mozambique, and just in context, we started at a place called Crook's Corner, and there's almost like a little triangle between Zimbabwe and Mozambique and South Africa. And the reason it's called Crook's Corner is because all the crooks used to go and hang out there because there was no jurisdiction to arrest them. So they would literally set up these camps in broad daylight, and as many as 100, 200 people at a time would be there getting ready for their next operation, and nobody could do anything. So hence the name Crook's Corner, which was our starting point. So guys, the trail that I'm just so delighted to share with you is called the Kruger Trail. And people say, yeah, but there's other Kruger Trails. And I'm saying, no. This is the Kruger Trail. Okay. And you can sort of see more or less the map that we followed through the park. So starting at Crook's Corner up the top corner there, our first stop was just north of a place called Shingwedzi. You'll see it on the map. From there, we moved down to Mapani. From Mapani, we'll hike to Olifants. So hopefully you guys can see on the map where I'm talking to. From Olifants, we hiked just below Satara. And then from there to Lower Sabi, and from Lower Sabi down to Malalan. So for those of you who know the park, hopefully a couple of familiar names, and hopefully you've been to a whole bunch of these places. And it's quite a thing to think that while people are driving around and in their cars, sort of sometimes a K or two away, sometimes 10, 15 Ks away, 20 Ks away, we are in the bush, entirely isolated, and it's quite a thing to have that context. So, this was our starting point, and quite an emotional moment, actually. I must say, I'm actually feeling quite emotional right now. Looking very dapper and clean, and everybody's looking excited and lots of smiles. And this was the core team that we walked the whole journey over a period of 3 years. So just a bit of sort of background to the trail. The trail is run by the SAMParks honorary rangers as a fundraising initiative. And so it's not a commercial thing, which is why some of the people go, but why is it so expensive? And the reason is it is there to raise money for SAMParks. And so what happens is the first leg of the trail goes on auction, and I think it's something like 5 trails per year that they sell. And so each leg is 6 days, so you camp for 5 nights and you walk for 6 days, and it's anything from sort of 90 Ks of the last leg up to almost 120 or so on a couple of the middle legs. So the first leg, from what I've heard, recently auctioned for 310,000 rand for one leg for a group of 8 people. So it's quite a pricey endeavor. From there onwards, every leg following, I think at the moment the going rate is 65 or 70,000 rand. I'm not sure, maybe even closer to 80. And that goes up with inflation-related cost every single year. So for anybody starting the trail now, you're looking to spend probably close on 500,000, maybe more, to walk the trail for 8 people over 6 legs. And what's quite, for me, it's really gratifying that the money that I spent, which certainly, it was pricey and it hurt, but the money that was spent was not just about having a good time, but also making a serious contribution to conservation. So yeah, I'm pretty proud about that. So just before we go forward, it's just worth saying that in the room we have Susan. We have Anita. We have Amit, who was our ranger, who's also an SAite. Christopher, Mr. Marlin, there you are. Ruth and Alistair are old-time beast people who we met on the hike, and we were like, no, how is it possible that we're doing this journey together? A lady called Mary was there, and Monica, where are you in the room? Monica, there you are, right in the front. That Monica, yes, and and Stephen. So it's quite a team of people that have been involved in the trail in one form or the next. And I've left the least for last, or the last for least, the best for last. Ash, who was actually part of the formation of the trail. He actually hiked some of the original trails while they were trailblazing, where to go, how to do it, where to camp. So as an ESSA member, he was instrumental in setting up the hike. So to be proud, guys, to be proud that we've been such an integral part of this space. Yeah. Thank you, Jono. All right, so what I figured is, just before we carry on, a big part of the trail, and something that was quite emotional actually, is a tradition called Isi Vivana. And each one of us carried a rock from Crook's Corner, or wherever we started, to the final point of the trail. And you'll see how the presentation starts with Graham's rock, and Graham being our sponsor and getting our this whole thing possible. It was quite a thing, offloading it at the end. So yeah, keep in mind that we start the presentation with our Isi Vivana rock, and we'll finish the presentation with the Isi Vivana rock at the end. So what I thought was we would start off, because I get a lot of questions asking about, but what do you carry? And the answer is you carry everything. So in the bottom part of my bag is a tent, sleeping bag, an inner, because it gets very chilly on the in the riverbeds. I carry thermals, one t-shirt to walk in for 6 days. So, why more? Yes. Then a stove, gas, all the cooking stuff, obviously toilet paper, and lots of it. We had a few cases of chipper guts, and thankfully I avoided, but certainly you want lots. A little bit of shower stuff, because every night, well, most nights we had a shower, and I'll show that to you in a sec. Medical kits, I carried snake bite bandages, blister kits, whole bunch of pills, and just, first aid bandages and so on. Obviously water, typically we carried 4 to 5 liters per day. You can imagine 30, 35, sometimes higher degrees, over 20 Ks. Carrying 20 Ks, you use a lot of water. So that was a big weight. My food typically weighed in the beginning about 5 to 6 Ks. Luckily, I'm strong enough, and I carried a bit more than some of our other members who cut back. And then, just like normal bits and pieces, we each had our own little idiosyncrasies as to what worked for us. But yeah, for me, I averaged 20 Ks every single hike, and it worked great. So yeah, so I thought, as part of the journey, I would actually take you on a typical day of what a trail looks like and what it feels like. And once again, just to say it again, I've used a lot of pictures because I want you to get a sense, almost like the kaleidoscope that this trail represents. There's just so much sensory information, there's so much engagement, there's so much to remember that it actually becomes a little bit overwhelming. So maybe by the end of this presentation, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed as well, and sort of get a vibe of what it was about. So typically we would wake up at about 4:30 in the morning, and take about an hour or so to pack. And I always like getting up before the sun. And then as I would put my bag together, take the tent down, the light would be coming up around the trees. Often the lions would be calling, the hyenas would be calling, the zebra would be in the background. Just such an incredible hour of the day. I wish I could be there every day. It would certainly be easier than getting up at home. But yeah, these hours were just magnificent. And then I would typically aim to be ready 10, 15 minutes before we would leave, make a cup of tea or a coffee, have a rusk, and just sit in my bag and just absorb this magical place that we were in. So the walk would typically last from sort of 5, 6, depending on the time of the year, till about 3, 4 in the afternoon. And when you're walking, there are 2 rangers in the front who have pretty big guns. There are 8 of us typically in the line, and you walk about 1 meter apart, sometimes 2 meters if you get a little bit slack, but under no circumstances do you fall behind. And part of the reason is that, when you're walking such long distances, somebody falls behind and the rangers don't see a buffalo, or the buffalo's been sleeping in the ground, and then they get up and they see this lone person. It becomes a real risk. So you walk close together, and there is no talking at all. Everything is quiet, and the reason it's so quiet is that the rangers can listen for the oxpeckers, listen for noises in the bush, and whatever signs they're picking up. But of course, it's also for us. You don't want to be listening to people nattering the whole time. It's such a beautiful opportunity to have 6 days of silence, really, but having people around at the same time. So yeah, just I tried to put a couple of pics together to show you a sense of some of the places that we walked. Right the way through thick mapani to the open grassland to acacia bushes, through riverine systems, often having to cross rivers, often passing through herds of antelope. One of my best is seeing the giraffe gallop past. They're curious for a while, and then they head off. We had such a great experience on our last hike where an impala, who I think was, just to be honest, shagged out. He was just in a zone. He had no idea what was going on. And he literally was walking towards us for about 10, 15 meters. And only when he was 1.5 meters, 2 meters away from us, he saw us. Suddenly he went, oh God. His eyes went big and he leaped away from us. And, these such intimate experiences were very, very special. So heading through the Mapani was tough. Hours and hours and hours walking through this thick bush where you literally can't see more than 1 meter or 2 ahead. Certainly you can't see the whole team. The rangers can't see you. We know the elephants and the buffalo are there. Got to be full alert. It's really easy to zone out. But yeah, in its own right, I at first hated the Mapani. It just became, so monotonous and getting hit in the face and the legs, but actually came to love what the Mapani represented. There were a few dodgy moments. Here we were crossing the Luvuvu River, and you might see that we were carrying sticks. And so myself and Stephen, we had the role of looking for crocs, or being croc bait. And thankfully, there weren't any, but in retrospect, I've had a few sleepless nights. This is just above the Lana Gorge, or just below the Lana Gorge, and the crocs are abundant. So we crossed the river, had to go over an island, and then had to cross back the other side of the river. So Mary at one point actually was being swept away by the current. And so it definitely was a bit hairy. Susan in the room was with us in that space. So yeah, quite a thing. But, in order to keep the energy of the hike going and sustained over such a long period of time, we would stop every 45 minutes or so. Typically find a riverbed, or under the shade of a tree, and typically have something to eat, or just rehydrate, refill with water. If it is an emergency, typically you would carry enough for the whole day. Otherwise, we just don't have enough time. and then head on again. So here, looking desperately for a tiny piece of shade in the baking heat, midday. Yeah, there were some times when that little piece of Monica smiling, you were there, right? Yeah, the little piece of shade is just such a blessing. And then getting to our campsites. And yeah, once again, I get quite emotional seeing this picture. I've been fortunate enough to camp wild in 42 different places in the Kruger Park. So, and each space is nothing short of magnificent and nothing short of a privilege and nothing short of just a blessing. So typically riverbeds are the best, nice and soft, a little bit cold though. We can also get access to water, which I'll show you now. Yeah, just anything from next to cliff faces, in riverbeds, in the bush, on the grass plains. Yeah, we camped everywhere and anywhere. So this was in the reason I took this picture is we had a rhino visit us as it was getting dark, and this rhino stayed with us till about 4 a.m, about 50 meters from us. And you know, every now and again we would look up and shine the torch, and there he would be grazing away. And like, wow, how do you even begin to share the magnificence and the privilege of being there? So yeah, more of the Mapani stuff, a little bit harder. This little dam you can actually visit from your car. This was on our last leg. We had the hippos the whole night grunting away. Certainly the nightclub I'll come to any night of the week. Yeah, they were having just a massive party. So finishing, you know, you get to your campsite, you start putting up your tents, and then we need to get water because obviously you got to get to the next day. And water would either come from a water drop, which we did twice because there was just no water in the area, or we would get water from a local river and filter it. What's water drop? A truck, a bakkie would drop bottles off with us. So the question was, what is a water drop? Or we would dig for water. And you know, somebody asked me just recently, what was my best thing about doing the Kruger Trail? And I just got to say, every single time we dug for water, I just had this feeling of incredible gratitude for life and for the space that we were. You know, how it works is you look for where the elephants have been digging for water, because the river follows a channel, so you can't just dig anywhere. So you can see where they've dug, because obviously they can smell where the water is. Depending on how high the water table is, you can actually see the remnants of the water, or you've got to dig down sometimes as much as a meter to find it. You then take rocks, and you can see the guys busy putting rocks in them, and you build like a wall around the hole. And what happens is the water just, you know, keeps on seeping in. And as you can see, it's pretty brown and pretty dodgy. But you then scoop anything from 20 to 50 to 70 liters of water out of the hole. And of course, as you scoop the water out, new water comes in until you have probably the cleanest water on the planet. Yeah, I mean, people used to joke and say, well, yeah, are we ready for the elephant piss tonight? Well, let me tell you, this was, yeah, it's special. Sometimes we used to filter the water even though we had got the hole, because sometimes the mineral content a little bit high, and for the guys coming in, especially from Europe, stomachs are just not used to the minerals in the water. And yeah, so it takes, we did do a little bit of sometimes filtering. And for the guys that are here, I have a whole bunch of show and tell, which is quite cool. And for the guys online, this is the water filter that became such an integral part of my life for the last 3 years. I'll pass it around. that little device can apparently filter in excess of 10,000 litres. And there were some times when we filtered some very, very dodgy looking water. And it worked perfectly. So quite incredible technology. So yeah, here's digging for water, having to go down almost the full length of my arm before we could actually get the water out. So basically, finishing getting water. The sun is setting, and as you can imagine, being around these sunsets every single night was almost spiritual. I think we could say that. And this is Hugh, and I remember this moment. He was just transfixed by the magnificence of this evening. But what certainly caught me by surprise was that most nights we had a shower, and so we take the water out of the out of the river or out of the elephant well, and the elephant well is abundant. I mean, there's an infinite amount of water. There's no scarcity at all, and so typically we get the shower up and running as fast as possible, and then like when do you shower with a local giraffe going and just having this space of thousands, millions of kilometers of bush around you, and having the journey of going through a process of cleanliness, spiritually, emotionally, physically. I found these evening showers astonishing. And often we would make a fire, which was nice. The cool thing about our journey in this space was that we would make sure that there is zero sign of us being there. So if we did have a fire, it would typically be quite small. And then in the morning, we would mix the soil with water. So the ash gets all mixed up, add some sand into that. Depending on where the fire was made, some elephant dung. Amit, how am I doing so far? All good, bra. So, and then we would remove all the ash, put it into spread it out into the local, the grassland or wherever. Obviously, making sure it's out and it's properly doused with the water. And by the time you leave, there's nothing. Any footprints quickly get mixed up in the elephant footprints. So we don't even leave footprints behind. So the toilet paper, you burn it. So there's a very strict protocol that you don't set fire to the bush. You dig a proper hole. So, sometimes the soil's hard. It takes a bit of an effort. And then you make sure that there is no remnant of the toilet paper left at all. And then obviously cover up the hole, make sure that there's no evidence for anybody else. And any waste, your food waste and what have you, gets taken out. And if you make too much food, well, then you eat the damn food, or you have it in the next morning for breakfast. But there's no leftovers being left around, or literally nothing gets taken out. I used to eat sardines quite a bit, which we would put in the fire to burn the oil off, and then smack them with a rock, get them small, and carry them out. Guys, let's do questions at the end, if that's okay. So, Doug. Yes, there's Doug. Yes, there's the big spade. Yeah. So just as a quick one, part of the ritual for those that didn't look after their feet was blisters and managing blisters. And I get quite a lot of, as people will tell you, vicarious, what's not vicarious, but certainly I like helping fix people's blisters. My go-to is methylate. And this is Howard. His go-to is also methylate. And for those of you who don't know how you get methylators, you go to the devil's toilet and you take out the devil's piss, and then you store it, and then you use that to sort the blister problem out. So that's the secret. Yeah, so there were a few tears along the way, and but yeah, this is the name of the game, I guess, hey? And then, of course, visitors at night. And this guy came in to eat the reeds. And if you look carefully, you can see one of our tents just in front of his trunk. So this guy is like 2-3 meters away from where we are sleeping. And he just came in. I certainly didn't hear anything. It was taken with a trail cam. And we've had buffalo in our camp. Tons of hyena come in, or certainly on the outskirts. We've had lion come onto the outskirts of our camp once. I wish they'd come more, but we didn't see them in our camp. We only saw them that once. So the world is around us. Make no mistake. So yeah, just one of the highlights of being in the park was the opportunity of swimming in rivers and whole water holes and so on. And this afternoon I was tallying all the places, and personally I ended up having the opportunity of swimming in 17 different rivers or water holes from top to bottom, and including being croc bait. Yeah, so astonishing. This is a place called Lana Gorge, which is up near the Punda Maria Porphyry Gate. Just what an incredible place. This is the, what's the river coming out of Letaba? Can't remember. Anyway, so this is, I think it's that river that goes next to the Letaba. Maybe it is the Letaba River, I can't remember. This was some little small one. Just as we got out, an elephant came through the bush, saw us, was like, what the hell is happening? And got the hell out of here. Got the hell out of Dodge. Here is the confluence of the Willifants River and the Letaba again. I just can't remember the name. And let me tell you, there were some proper big crocs, and luckily there was just quite a lot of rock in between us. So it's safe, we hope, I think. But yeah, I mean, what an iconic place to be able to swim. And then I promised Graham I wouldn't put this picture in, but I took special effort to coordinate my Speedo and my sunglasses and my Crocs, that they were all blue. So at any point, the fashion was in mode, right? Yeah. So hi, Graham. So yeah, this is the couple of really special places. Top of Lana Gorge. In the bottom there is where we were swimming. Not the easiest place to get to. Just some incredible river basins. And then one of my most special places was a place called Red Rocks. Some of you might remember that, just south of Shingwedzi. And when you're there, you don't get to see the detail of the erosion and like the Blythe River Canyon type potholes. And but for me, the real magic that happened here in Red Rocks was that over thousands of years, the elephants have chosen a path between these potholes, and the rock is literally polished silver. And it is ice smooth. And you can imagine how many thousands of elephant footsteps are needed to polish the rock to such an extent. But the other thing that was behind this place, and guys, for those of you that are sensitive, a sad reality, is we found this leopard that had drowned in one of the potholes. And what made the story even more bizarre is that in the same pothole was a drowned fish eagle. And, you would never, ever, 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 ever see this in any other context. And of course, the big question is, did the fish eagle go in to eat the carrion or to at least see what had happened to the leopard, or did the leopard go in after the fish eagle? The sad reality is we could literally see the scratch marks of the leopard's claws just on the edge of the pothole, and it just wasn't strong enough to get out. It just could not get the grasp. And so a harsh reality of what it means to be in this world. Lots of close encounters. This encounter, this elephant came to us, and it's pretty close. What is good to know is that we're actually behind a rock kopje here. So if the other elephant had come any closer, we would have moved back, and there's no way that the elephant could have got to us. The sad reality is that there have been a number of elephants that have been shot on the Kruger trails. And, it's a really tough ethical question whether the trail should be there or not. In my mind, given that there are an abundance of elephants, firstly, but second of all, that the funds that are raised from the Kruger Trail are so essential to the park, that this is a really tough reality. But certainly, having been there and being so close to this magnificent animal who came to us and was as curious as we were about us, as we were about it, and he came up totally calm, smelling the air, checked us out. The ranger was actually speaking to him, saying, "Don't worry, my boy, it's all good." And then he just backed away. No aggression, no panic or anxiety. It was a truly magical moment. And of course, today's day and age, walking past rhino didn't happen a lot. We saw the spoor, we saw the middens, but guys, we know the reality, right? There's not enough of them. We met lion on the trail at one point, and what was a little bit freaky is that about 3 or 4 k's later, we were just about to cross a river, and the lions came out of the bush. They had literally been following us, and we were oblivious for that probably 5, 6, 7 k's. I don't know about the thing. So they were there in the bush the whole time, and we had zero idea, except when they came out the bush when we crossed the river. So, yeah, that was quite a thing. Perhaps one of my best game experiences, though, was in an almost like an oasis. It's like a spring that's a couple thousand years old, and around the spring, the earth has been packed by all the game that comes down, and we knew that the buffalo were there, so we had attempted to move beyond them, and they had been moving at the same time, and we basically ended up in this piece of ground at the same time. And for probably about a minute or so, these buffalo watched us and we watched them. Probably about 100, maybe 200 of them. And wow, that's when you know true power. And then one of the buffalo at the back decided, this is way too freaky, turned around and stormed into the bush. And within probably 10 seconds, all of them had stormed into the bush. And we could literally feel the earth shaking. And we could hear this tidal wave of meat smashing through the bushes as these 100, 200 buffalo just, stormed off. But what an astonishing experience to have 100 or more buffalo looking at us face to face, and once again curious. Not a lot of people. I certainly wasn't aware of any aggression in the herd. We did have a head-on with the hippo, who was not happy. Our ranger was super aware. He had seen the hippo early, and we moved really quickly out of its way. So yeah, the guys are there, and we experienced a lot. Hyenas all the time. Yeah, just all the time. It's coming into camp. We could see their eyes all the time. We could hear them all the time. And even during the day, we would see them. I mean, at one point we were on the trail and one guy turned around, because you always pee behind you because that's theoretically where we've already checked for game. And as he goes over the crest, about 2-3 meters away from him, the hyena was about 2-3 meters away from the crest. And they both kind of like went, this is unusual. And so the hyena buggered off into the bush. And so they were there all the time. And, the music at night and their calls were just so evocative, and certainly one of my favorite sounds of the African bush. And then a whole bunch of the small stuff. So the minutiae of the bush is just so astonishing. And being able to see stuff that you wouldn't normally see. And so on the left is an ant snake. Apparently it eats ants. Amit, is that right? Yeah. I'm always coming just like, as the resident expert, you the go-to, right? So, Paul saw this. How the hell he saw it, I don't know. I mean, I never even knew there were ants, snakes that ate ants. Perhaps my favorite plant is the devil's thorn, right? Devil's thorn. And if you look at the design of the thorn, it fits into the bottom of the clove-shaped hooves of the likes of impala, what have you. And then gets carried away and, obviously disperses. But what is so incredible about this plant is that if you take the leaves off and crush them up and then add water, it becomes possibly the best soap that I've ever experienced in my life. Thick, rich, smells just so incredibly intense. Clean your hands away, and you're left with silky, soft skin. And as a guy, I appreciate silky, soft skin, right? Yeah. So literally, I would grab down, I would see some of the stuff, I would pick it up, and then as we were walking, I would clean my hands and my face, and of course the small stuff, like this is a utica, if I remember correctly, the praying mantis egg. Yeah, so what we saw and connected with was pretty cool. Mating legavons or rock monitors or whatever they were. I mean, nothing like a bit of action in the bush, hey? Incredible birds, as you would imagine. A couple of owls often in camp, and either the pygmy or the malachite. I don't know which, not too sure which is the malachite. I think that was the common consensus, but I don't know. Vultures. We actually came across one of the elephant carcasses. I would say probably 200 to 300 to 400 vultures in the air, many of which we disturbed that were on the carcass already. And one of my favorite things that I found, we can call it that, or was shown rather. This is the seed of the mopani tree. And so you split the seed open, and the actual seed itself is like a little brain with all the little sort of, the things that are all convoluted and such golden colors. I mean, the jewel inside that mopani bush is mind-blowing. And of course, yeah, I mean, how wonderful to find these little guys on the road. And for my friend Hendrik, who's either listening or is going to list at some point in time, a little rain frog. So we found him next to one of our watering holes, and he nearly got stood on. These little guys burrow for a lot of their lives. So, just so incredibly lucky to find this little guy. Spiders, tarantulas, yeah. Also really cool to see this one in its hole. And maybe one of the most bizarre experiences was finding a dead puff adder on the path in pretty much perfect condition. Perfect. And anybody idea why it was dead and not squashed, which is a hint? It came onto the path early morning. Well, this is what we think. And then got stood on by an elephant that was walking down to the watering hole. And the elephant was obviously heavy enough to kill the thing, but at the same time, its feet had molded around the snake that it hadn't squashed it flat. So, yeah, an astonishing find. So, what was that? I can't hear. Had a heart attack. maybe. I suspect not, but maybe. And then, of course, all sorts of bugs and beetles and, certainly got bitten by goodness knows what multiple times. Thankfully, ticks weren't too much of a problem. Just watching my time. And this thing here on the left is a fish ladder. So what they've done is they've built this device on the edge of this dam, which allows the migration of fish up and down. So the fish can actually jump up the ladders as though it was like a rapid. And we didn't see any fish doing the jumping, but I'm told with authority, and of course we always believe authority, right? That this is the real deal. It was nice to see that the hyacinth wasn't a massive problem. You can see some of it there. Apparently it has been an issue and the guys are really struggling to deal with it. But on this particular dam, it wasn't a huge problem. And of course the giraffes. They were just so curious, you know. It almost felt like the guy on the left-hand side there kind of like had never seen a human before. He just kind of came closer and then he would like look and see, and he would like, you know, he was proper engaging with us. On the right is a baby eland. And this little thing heard us tramping in the bush. We weren't making any noise. Obviously, we were walking. And he thought we were its mother. And he came bounding out of the bush with great delight to find us, and he wasn't too sure. And then thankfully he went back into the bush where he came from, because our ranger was saying that they have a habit of connecting. And then you've actually got to shout at them and throw rocks at them and be abusive to make them go back into the thickets or wherever they were hiding. So thankfully this little guy saw us, looked, it's like very dodgy things, this, and then went back into the thickets again. So he was so cute, like so cute. And what would life be if we didn't stop and smell the roses, eh? One of my best things is there's like a lavender bush, I don't know what it's called, that grows in abundance. And I would run down, grab a handful and just rub my hands, rub it onto my face, rub it on my neck, and take the oils of the leaf and, you know, get as strong as the smell as I can onto myself, just because it was then, you know, just sitting for the next 10 minutes of just having this this oil scent. So lastly but not least, the baobabs and the trees. Holy moly. I mean, we shared this journey with giants. That's fair. That's a fair statement to make. This little flower is used for eye drops, if I remember correctly. Hey? What is it called again? Chromalina. By the way, Amit blew my brain with how many of these scientific names. It was like a walking freaking encyclopedia. He just astonishing. And a little bit of history and a little bit of culture. We 2 or 3 times came to caves with caveman art. And what was really interesting for me is, having spent so much time in the Drakensberg and now quite a bit of time here, is seeing the different types of paintings. Here, like elephants and what be a jackal or a lion or whatever that is. Kind of cool. See the different take or the different world that these guys are living in. We visited, and I said I wasn't going to forget this name. What's it called again? They're in the north with the T. Tulumela. Thank you. So Tulumela seems to be a couple thousand years old, possibly linked to the Zimbabwe ruins, but an integral trading village. They say up to about 4,000 people were living in this area. And the urban legend, which I thought was quite fun, was apparently when the chief went down to wash, every person in the village had to close their eyes. So 4,000 people had to be coordinated to close their eyes at the same time. And if you opened your eyes, daar kom kak. So yeah, the stories that abound. Sad reality. This is bush. We are not the top of the food chain. At this place, if you look right in the middle, sort of there, you can see a little bit of dirt. One of the groups was scooping water, and the ranger got taken by a croc. The guys that tell the story say that they were scooping water, and a second later, this croc had risen, grabbed the guy by the arm, and had yanked him into the water. One of the guests apparently tried to jump into the water, into the pond, to grab his legs, but was not fast enough. And they said you could literally see the bubbles under the water from where this guy was dragged into the pond. As it happens, it had a happy ending, so to speak, in that the guy who survived, strong, knowledgeable, he managed to get if I've got the story right, which, I don't know if I've got the story right, but apparently he managed to get his feet on the ground, using his left arm, was reaching for the croc's eye or something. The croc couldn't go into a death roll or didn't or whatever, and then realized that it had literally bitten off more than it could chew, and let go and disappeared into the water somewhere. So this guy, the ranger, managed to get out, dragged himself onto the other side of the bank. They were able to use the sat phone to get hold of a poaching unit that was thankfully quite close. Got him first aid, got him to the hospital. His arm was broken a couple of places, and he survived. This was on the Kruger Trail. Yeah, this was the group before us. So literally we arrived so the question was it in the Kruger Trail? And yes, it was. And so we arrived on the Sunday getting ready, and our ranger said to us, listen guys, you just need to know this is what's happened. And if anybody doesn't want to do this anymore, it's okay. So yeah, it's there is a harsh reality that go into the bush, you're facing what lives there. Quite a thing. And it was obviously walking past the place, having happened so soon, was a proper reality check. So just as I start to finish up on this side of the presentation, let me just check my time. It's super important for me to give recognition to a man that I've come to recognize as one of my best friends in this world. And once again, I get a bit emotional. His name is Graham. His name's Graham Down, and he's the guy who had the vision to make this real for our group. And Mr. Graham, if you're listening, I hope you're starting to cry. But yeah, just in case I didn't tell him enough how grateful I am for this opportunity that was created. This was literally the greatest adventure of my life. You know, obviously outside of relationships and what have you, but wow, this was something. And of course, the other side are our rangers. Mr. Amit, who's in the room, the guys that kept us safe. And the greatest respect for the team of guys that make this real and keep us safe. The guys literally put their lives on the line for us. We didn't have a single ranger that was not entirely vested in our experience and making it the best possible experience that we could have. They were super professional. And so for any of the guys that may download the video at some point in time, which by the way, we will put onto our YouTube channel. Well, my heartfelt thanks to you guys, and I know that I speak for the team, because we've spoken about it a number of times, how grateful we all are for the role that you guys played. Yeah. And how cool that one of the Issa Oaks was like the Ranger Oak. I mean, like, wow. What a legacy, hey? What a legacy. And so, I think this picture of Amit is just awesome. And we had some really cool laughs. And, as a group of people, some really powerful connections across the board. And for the rest of the team, if you guys are listening in, well, I'm just super grateful for the journey that we've shared together as well. And so, we started with the SUV Vana, and this is the end of our journey, the place where we put our rocks. And the SUV Vana tradition is basically, first of all, expressing gratitude for the land, for the journey, for the spirits that have kept us safe, for the water that we drank, offering blessings to travelers that are following in our footsteps, and also, putting the vibes out for the journey going forward. There's different ways of interpreting the Isivana, but we carried one rock. But there's different ways that people interpret it. And guys, I got to tell you, we put it down. Everything was laughing. We were all happy, and I wanted to say a prayer, and it was spontaneous, and I started sobbing. Full body sobs for the magnificence of this experience, and for what we shared together, and for the gift that land has shared with us, and how lucky we are to be able to be a part of the Kruger. So certainly, for me, it was a massive emotional investment as well. And then just a little bit of punting, but also just to share that for me, a big part of the trail was using a product called Trail Foods. I am a brand ambassador for the guys, and I really like this stuff. But one of the reasons that I wanted to support these guys is they are pushing some really powerful social projects. One of the projects that the guys are putting in play is something called Meals for Rangers. And part of the profits that are generated are used to buy extra food for the rangers in the park, or other parks as well. I'm not quite sure the full extent of the vision. But these guys that work in the park, they have a pretty rough time. They're obviously having to deal with poaching, deal with the reality of some really harsh conditions, often living in picket camps without TV or internet, or tents that are falling to pieces. And Trish and the team are working towards making these lives better. So we also have launched the program, she and I, where people can go online and buy the food and get a discount code for an anti-snaring donation. And I think it's I support anti-snare or anti-snaring. So you go online and part of the sale goes to anti-snaring project. So yeah, it's really nice to work with these guys. The second thing I brought is a pair of gaiters, for those of you who can see, and Lisa, if you are online, Liz, if you are online, you can feel proud. The AR gaiters, built, designed, sewn by one of our very own SAites. I wore the AR gaiters from start to finish. And yeah, they were pretty freaking awesome, actually. I was testing this prototype for the last hike, and yeah, it was brilliant. So anybody in the gaiter market, AR gaiters is the place to go. Bit of shameless promotion, right? But just as a finishing of our talk in the last sort of 10 minutes that I have, wanted just to share with you a project that I have been a part of for the last probably 2 or so years. It's part of the SANParks honorary rangers, and of which I am one. And it's a project that's been running for okay. Hopefully, Lewis, can you still hear us there? Okay, let's just check.
I can still hear you. You just dropped off for a little while.
Okay, so we just the load shedding kicked off and the generator kicked out and the load power kicked in. So we'll edit that video out before we put it onto YouTube. But yeah, just to say again, it's a project that I've been a part of for the last 2 or so years. It's a project that is run by the SANParks honorary rangers. And what's really important to stress is that the snaring project, or the anti-snaring project, is there as a support to SANParks. And the project would not be viable without SANParks. So, it's a really fantastic synergy, if we can use that word, relationship. But the SANParks guys are doing an amazing job in some really tough circumstances, and the honorary rangers are working to support them and help them as best they can. And you can get a sense of what the snares look like. I actually have a bunch of them with me. Just got to tell you, this show and tell is really cool. I didn't do enough of it at school, obviously. So this one here, if you guys can see it online, is a snare that is used probably for impala, maybe even zebra, right the way through to this beast, which is, the wire is probably half the size of my pinky, and is targeting the bigger animals like giraffe and buffalo. I just want to read to you a text that I got from one of the guys in the snaring team. One of my heroes, actually, she says, yeah, last Sunday was rough. We found 5 zebra carcasses and a leopard, 263 snares removed. Okay, that is in one weekend, and a predator cage. And for those of you who've never heard of a predator cage before, it's this almost like a box, if we can use that term. And the guys that are doing the poaching bait the box, typically with a dog or something like that out of the township that gets killed, draws the predators in, multiple snares around the cage, and they'll use that animal for mooty, teeth, bones, obviously the skin. Yeah, so it's there's something like 3.5 million people that live on the edge of the Kruger Park, and snaring is a reality. Obviously, there are many different views on snaring and poaching and subsistence farming. It seems as though the commercial aspect of it is getting worse. People are coming in, targeting, putting 100 snares at a time kind of thing, targeting an entire herd of impala, for example, and then using the stuff for bushmeat and on selling. So it's real simple. Of course, the snare gets caught around the animal's neck. The animal panics and tightens, and ultimately the animal dies. Sometimes quickly, sometimes not so quick. So this was an impala that I came across in one of the snares we did a couple of weeks ago. But the great news is the guys are doing absolutely incredible work, and as you said, incredible work in conjunction with SANParks. And last year alone, the snaring team with SANParks took out over 3,000 snares. Sure, it's quite a thing, right? The great news as well is that we have been doing some fundraising, and within a couple of donations from the ESSA community and a couple of people in my network, we've raised 25,000 Rand so far, which have been used to buy radios, wire cutters, and that kind of thing, which are really important for the sustainability of the team, but also making the team bigger so that we can get more teams out there. The guys are all volunteers like myself in the bush. Safety is an issue, which means that we all need to have radios at all times. If there are no radios, then the team can't grow. And so in the room, maybe if people are interested in putting some cash towards the project, I'm going to be putting a donation together this part of the year. If the guys online are interested, then drop Lewis a note, because we would love any donation. And if anybody who watches the recording on our YouTube channel sees this, then you can email me at chris@infinitylearning.co.za, and the cash would be well received. Okay. So, guys, that is pretty much me for this presentation tonight. And I hope it was magnificent and that you enjoyed it. Yeah. And pretty much right on timing.
Thank you, Chris.
Right. You're welcome.
What a lack of presentation. Normally we get the chairman to hand over the wine to the speaker, but Chris is the chairman and the speaker, so I'm going to give it to you to hand to yourself. But Chris, what a
thank you, chairman. We appreciate it. No, thanks, guys. Just for the guys that aren't here, there are a couple of other show and tell things that I brought. The one that is, well, the two that are particularly fascinating, just in the minute or two we have left, is an iron rock. This thing is super heavy for how big it is. So if you guys can see, but the more fascinating thing I thought could be quite fun is this thing, which is the outside of a dung beetle ball. So after the dung beetle has buried its dung ball, this casing forms. And what's quite cool is as the honey badgers are walking along, as they do, they can hear and feel, hear. Thanks, Smith. They can hear the sound of the larvae moving around in this bore, about a foot or so underground, and they dig it up and obviously eat the larvae. But I just found it quite astonishing that as this honey badger is walking along, it can literally hear the larvae a foot underground, and then go to the effort of digging up this thing in quite hard soil just for one little worm. So yeah, the things we find, what we've seen, the little stories that the bush has to tell. And guys, we are going to be doing trips like this in the future, and watch this space. Watch this space. So good night, and thank you very much. If there's any questions, we've got about another 5 minutes left. Should we start here? Kathy. What does it mean? I have no idea. The question was the name of that ECV fauna. What does it mean? I did Google it, but no idea. I can't remember.
So, yes. So can I jump in on that one?
Yes.
I don't know what it means, but I worked in Zululand for a long time. The way they practice it there, which is really nice, I like it, is that you
want to come and share that people can hear you?
You carry 2 stones. So you always put on 2 stones onto the cairn. And the first one is to wish the people ahead of you, after you thank them for making the journey safe for you, marking the way. And the second stone is to wish all the people behind you good luck. So you never wish for anything yourself, but you share the so you will become a recipient of blessing of people ahead of you, which I think is really touching, right? Carry it on those constantly follow.
Yeah. Okay. You want to say that again? So you carry it to honor the people on the shoulders. You
carry it
to honor the footsteps that you followed, and the shoulders, the shoulders of the people you stand on. Okay. Cool. So Andrew was just saying in what he has come across is that there are 2 stones. One to honor the people that have shown the trail, and one to honor the guys behind following. So yeah, ECV Vana, it's pretty cool. It's very emotional. Anybody else? Any thoughts, questions? Good.
Question. Do the guys actually try and get to the animal?
So do the guys what?
Do the guys actually try and get to the animal?
Oh, I see.
Or do you just cross their paths and hope for the best? Second one, you find a poacher. What is the process?
Okay, so the first question is, do we go actually looking for animals? And the answer is no. You're kind of on the trail, and if your paths cross, for the most time, you'll actually move off the trail as best as possible to avoid conflict. And the second thing is, what happens if you find a poacher? Well, it's never happened to me, but the protocol is that as an honorary ranger, you do nothing. It's the Sam Parks story.
What do they do?
Look, I'm not a Sam Parks person, so I prefer not to speak on their behalf. Yeah.
You don't get involved.
Yeah, we don't get involved. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Mariam, you had your hand up.
Yeah. What was the drill at night when I like?
Yep.
Watching.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So the Mariam was asking the question, what is the drill at night? And basically we would get to camp probably 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes 5 a little bit later if it's been a particularly long day. Then typically the guys start putting up their tents. 1 or 2 of us would go look for water if we had to dig for it, put up the shower if there was enough time, and only once or twice there wasn't enough time for a shower. And then just start getting dinner stuff ready. If it was feasible to make a fire, sometimes there's just too much dry grass around, and It's just too much of a risk. But if you're in a riverbed, that's not a problem at all. Then, some people would sit and do their own thing and just, really just get into that space of the bush. Others would sit around the fire or sit around a common area and just kind of either chat or quietly get on with making dinner. And at some point in time, people would just go to bed. If the fire was up, you would let it die down so that the ashes would, be as fine as possible. If you wake up in the night and you need the loo, then you hope it's not a number 2. If it's a number 1, you listen for for any sounds. You don't turn your torch on in the tent, because then obviously the tent lights up, and if there are lions in the camp, that becomes a problem. So you listen, unzip, look with your torch around, hear, get up, look around again, and then have a pee and get back into your tent as fast as possible. So that was typically protocol. I mean, more or less? Yep. Okay. So yeah. Okay, we need to go. Lewis, any questions on your side?
Sorry, there are a couple of questions on the chat.
Just going to do 1 or 2 because we're already 5 minutes over.
You might be able to access the chat directly and you can read them. Just try and pop it open.
Okay.
Otherwise...
Right. Okay, I got a whole bunch of stuff coming in. Very cool. Did you cross the Luvuva? Yes. We did cross over the Luvuva River and swim in Lana Gorge. So this was actually part of what I didn't explain earlier is the Lana Gorge hike was actually a 7th leg of the trail that I did. So I've walked somewhere in the vicinity of 850 Ks in the Kruger. Officially the Kruger Trail is 650, but I've been fortunate to have done extra. How do they determine where to camp? So there is a pin that the rangers will go to, and they are allowed to camp within 1 kilometer of that pin. So at any time, the section rangers know where we are, and there's a lot of controls in place around safety. So on a day, rough estimate, minimum 15 up to 24 Ks in a day. And a punt for AR Gators. Lisa, we love you. Best gators in the world, yes. argators.co.za. Yeah, all right. And astonishing stories, once in a lifetime experiences. Thank you. So guys, that is it. For the guys online, thank you so much for joining us. For the guys who are here, it's such an honor that you took the time to come and listen. And hopefully you're all going to come down and have dinner. Okay.